The St. Augustine Lighthouse has been standing tall since the 1800s, and it has quite a creepy reputation. There have been a number of strange occurrences and incidents here throughout its history. One of its earliest keepers, Peter Rasmussen, loved his cigars, and some folks claim they can still catch a whiff of his favorite scent lingering around the lighthouse. Then there's another keeper, Joseph Andrew. People will catch glimpses of him looking down from the top of the tower. The thing is, though, he died over 100 years ago. He died after he fell while painting the tower. The most haunted tale, though, is that of the Pitti sisters, Mary and Eliza. They'd been playing in a cart used to carry materials back and forth to the lighthouse, but it broke loose, sending them tumbling into the water. Even after 150 years, there are reports of giggling and playful laughter echoing from the tower late at night, believed to be the spirits of the young girls. Some even claim to have spotted them floating around the bay.
Step into the Florida Theater in Jacksonville, Florida, and you might feel the lingering echo of its past. A past that doesn't just sleep when the lights dim. Built on the grounds of an old police station in 1926 and opening its doors in 1927, this historic venue carries whispers of its earlier days. Visitors and staff share unsettling stories of strange shadows flitting across the balcony and mysterious shapes that show up in photos as if someone or something refuses to be forgotten. Most chilling of all are the rumors swirling around the ghost of an old projectionist whose spirit is said to still wander the halls long after the final credits have rolled. Despite the efforts of paranormal experts who came to debunk these ghostly claims, they instead left with more questions than answers, having encountered eerie phenomena that suggest something truly unworldly haunts the Florida Theater. It's a place where the past doesn't just haunt, it holds court, making the theater not just a spot for a show, but a doorway to the mysterious and the unknown.
What I've learned doing these lists is that if you die in a movie theater, a park, a hospital, like your ghost, you're staying there for the rest of the time. You never hear about a haunted laundromat or something like that. I don't know. Key West Cemetery, 100,000 or so corpses are buried here, all packed into the 19-acre space. The cemetery was built back in 1847 after a hurricane wreaked havoc on the island, and this cemetery has seen it all, from the tragic victims of that natural disaster, soldiers of the Spanish-American War. There's a whole lot of history here. Now, aside from all the ghosts that are said to roam around here, and there are a lot, this is also the cemetery at the center of one of the most insane, creepy tales in American history. This is the cemetery where Carl Tanzler dug up Elena Milagro Hoyos. He was obsessed with her, and after digging up her body, he tried to preserve her. He kept her in his home and would even sleep next to her. Yeah, creepy. But who are some of the ghosts that are said to lurk here? First, there's the Bahamian woman. Folks say she appears both day and night, and unlike ghosts that just vanish into thin air, this one is much more abrasive. She's pissed pretty much all of the time, but especially if she catches you disrespecting the graves. Sit on a tombstone, stomp across a plot, and she may show up. There's also the story of the young girl's voice. Visitors have told stories of wandering through the cemetery when they suddenly hear a small voice calling out to them, and then they follow it. Only when they finally reach the source, they simply find the grave of a young girl.
I read that there's also a gravestone in there that says, "I told you I was sick." Which, I love that. Be petty even in death. Whatever. On a remote island within the dry Tortugas, Fort Jefferson stands as quite the structure, as it was built from 16 million bricks. It's just a crazy fact. Originally constructed to protect and guide ships navigating the treacherous waters of the Florida Straits into the Gulf of Mexico, this massive fort has morphed through history from a vital military stronghold to a shadowy, haunted relic. As the Civil War raged, the fortress transformed into a grim prison housing Confederate captives, sealing its fate as a site steeped in dark tales and tragic events. Today, Fort Jefferson is not only a major tourist draw, but also a reputed epicenter of ghostly encounters. Imagine a place where every conceivable horror has occurred, including executions, people eating, deadly disease outbreaks, you name it, this place has seen it. It's said that inmates turned on each other with makeshift weapons, and the surrounding waters claimed the lives of those trying to escape. Among its notorious residents was Dr. Mudd, the physician whose legend says treated President Lincoln's assassin. Imprisoned at Fort Jefferson, he became a pivotal figure during a virus outbreak that claimed 38 lives. His medical interventions spared many more, and today paranormal enthusiasts and skeptical reporters flock to the fort, some armed with photos they claim capture spectral glares, potential proof of the supernatural.
The most haunted building in Tampa is said to be the Cuban Club. This place isn't just famous for like one or even a handful of ghosts. Some say there are hundreds, which is too many ghosts. The Cuban Club was built in 1917 as a social services organization for Cuban immigrants, hence the name. There was all sorts of stuff here. There was a bowling alley, a spa, a restaurant, a swimming pool, even a theater, and that theater is where our first ghostly tale begins. An actor took his own life on stage sometime in the 20s. He'd forgotten his lines, and this was just the last straw. He ended it right there. I don't know how exactly. There's probably very different versions of the story, but point is he died. Now some say his spirit still hangs around the theater, unable to move on. Then there's Little Jimmy, the ghost of a boy who drowned in the club's swimming pool. His spirit is said to mess with flashlights and appear in photographs taken when the club is empty. And there are a number of other nameless ghosts. Some say there's the energy of two former board members who had a falling out, with one firing at the other in anger. Sometimes the pianos are also said to play by themselves, and there's the ghostly spirit of a woman in a white dress who wanders the halls. One staff member told a story about a woman visiting the building, having been so frightened at the sight of her that she fell to her knees crying.
Nestled in the heart of Florida, a stretch of Interstate 4 harbors a chilling secret that might just make your GPS falter and your headlights flicker. Known as the Dead Zone, this haunted highway is steeped in ghostly tales that date back to the days when pioneer spirits roamed the land. Locals whisper about electronic blackouts and strange voices that crackle through car radios as they drive through this mysterious section of road. I don't know, I've never really heard about like a specific, I think we've done top 10 haunted roads in the past, but I don't know if we've done top 10 haunted specific sections of roads. I don't know, maybe that's an idea. The origins of the Dead Zone trace back to a tragic past involving a group of Swedish settlers who met their untimely demise due to an epidemic before the turn of the 19th century. These settlers were laid to rest right where they fell, and a local farmer later acquired the land, farming respectfully around the graves, never disturbing the final resting place of these souls. What a nice man. However, the serenity of this site was disrupted in the 1950s when the farmer's widow sold the land to the state, paving way for Interstate 4 to be constructed directly over this sacred burial site. Today, some believe that these restless spirits of the pioneers are expressing their displeasure by meddling with the very fabric of reality along this segment of the highway. It's no wonder that the area has become notorious for its spooky occurrences, from unexplained accidents to bone-chilling sounds emanating from nowhere. So next time you're driving down the I-4 and your radio starts to hiss or your dashboard lights start to dance, remember that you might just be passing through the dead zone, where the past is anything but forgotten. So that's just nice for your little road trip. You're just having snacks with your family, listening to the radio, and you're like, oh, we're driving over somebody's burial site. How sad. Pour one out.
Estero Village is home to Corishan State Park, an incredibly lovely area that is also said to be the home of some spirits. But these are particularly interesting ones. They're the ghosts of a former cult. Now, the park was the site of the Corishan Unity, a commune founded by Cyrus Teed, who proclaimed himself as the Messiah in the late 1800s. Teed and his followers settled here in 1894. When Teed died in 1908, though, His followers loaded him up into a bathtub while they awaited his resurrection. Well, weeks went by, and he hadn't come back to life yet, and his decomposing corpse was getting so bad that the health department stepped in and forced them to get rid of it. But legend has it that the spirits of Teed and his devoted followers still wander the park, watching over their land. It's an absolutely beautiful spot by day, but it's said to take on a different vibe after sunset. Some claim to have seen shadowy figures walking along the trails only to vanish into thin air. Others report hearing unexplained voices echoing through the buildings, and then there are the mysterious orbs of light that have been spotted floating in the darkness.
Found in St. Augustine, Florida, and built in 1672, Castillo de San Marcos is a historic site that has switched hands from Spanish to British to American control, witnessing countless battles and echoing the tumultuous history of its time. Today, it serves as a museum, captivating tourists with not only its architectural grandeur, but also its eerie legends. Visitors often speak of sightings of fallen soldiers still patrolling the ancient walls as if guarding the fortress from long-gone enemies. Even more haunting are the tales of a tragic love triangle involving a Spanish colonel, a captain, and a woman whose spirits are said to roam the dungeons where their bodies were once found under very mysterious circumstances. This castle, with its dark past and spectral inhabitants, continues to be a beacon for those drawn to the unexplained and the supernatural.
Florida is even said to be the home of a haunted tree, often called the Devil's Tree, located in Oak Hammock Park. So back in the early 70s, a number of killings happened here, and they happened at the hands of the former sheriff's deputy of Martin County, Gerard John Schaefer. He'd buried two of his victims, Susan Place and Georgia Jessup, who he'd violated before killing, and then buried their bodies close to the tree. Now, Schaefer took the lives of at least 26 women. He'd lure them using his badge before driving them out to remote locations, usually tying them to trees before taking their lives. He was finally arrested and sentenced after two of his victims managed to escape. He was later killed in prison by a fellow inmate. Legend has it that the tree is now possessed. It's said that over the years there have been several attempts to cut down the tree, but something's always gone wrong. There are also stories about figures dressed in dark hooded cloaks performing satanic rituals near the tree at night. The stories about the Devil's Tree are so well known that in the early 90s, a local priest supposedly tried to perform an exorcism there to try and rid it of its dark energy.
Near Tampa, Florida, the Sunshine Skyway Bridge isn't just a stunning feat of engineering, it's a hotspot for creepy tales that might just give you goosebumps. Let's take it back to 1980, and amidst a foggy morning, a colossal freighter misjudges its path and slams into the bridge. The impact is catastrophic. Cars and even a Greyhound bus plunge into the icy depths below. But the eerie occurrences don't stop at this freak accident. Over the years, the bridge has become a grim sight where 200 unfortunate souls have met their end, leaping from its highest point. And if that's not enough to send a shiver down your spine, consider the whispers some have heard while crossing, or the shadowy figures seen wandering perilously close to the edge. Most unsettling of all are the tales of a phantom hitchhiker, a young woman who appears real enough to be given a ride across the bridge only to somehow vanish from the passenger seat without a trace. Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have Derek L. Frierson. The information put out by authorities regarding this case states that the crime in question took place in 2015 on a night after the suspect had been drinking at a bar in the downtown Orlando area. After having a few too many, he apparently entered his vehicle to drive out of the downtown area. Already bad for sure. The report continues on that he struck the rear of a vehicle which was stopped for a red light at the intersection of East Colonial Drive and North Mills Avenue. When he impacted, it is said that his car was traveling at 55 miles per hour, which is 88.5 kilometers per hour, and that it made no attempts to avoid the crash. This crash caused the death of one person in the vehicle that was sitting at the red light, along with another one of the passengers to become paralyzed from the waist down, while the other three in the vehicle all sustained other injuries as as well. Derek was found to have had a blood alcohol level of 0.215 that night, which is over 2.5 times the legal limit to drive. And not only this, but he also is said to have had prior DUI convictions in Florida as well as Missouri. Unfortunately, authorities have reported that since this crash, Derek has left the Orlando area and is currently trying to evade these charges. There is an active warrant out for his arrest pertaining to multiple charges, all as a result of this accident. In our number 9 spot today, we have Harry Dana Braswell Jr. Okay, so for this one, we have to take it back in time a bit to Harry's initial arrest, which was on February 22nd, 1975. Harry was arrested for taking the life of John Robbins. Basically, a couple days before his arrest, on February 19th, Harry and 3 accomplices entered John's home, tied him to the bed, and took his life. Everyone involved in the crime was arrested at the same time as Harry, and subsequently, they were sentenced to life in prison. This obviously doesn't sound like someone who is on the loose, so what could have happened? Well, after serving 8 years of his sentence, Harry escaped. In 1983, at the Sumter Correctional Institute, Harry hid himself inside one of the cabinets that he and another inmate were loading onto a truck inside of the facility. Once the truck left the facility, he and the other inmate jumped off of the truck and voila, they had escaped. While the other inmate was later recaptured in Oregon, Harry was never able to be located and he remains at large. In our number 8 spot today, we have Joseph Obregon. Joseph has been wanted by the Tampa Police Department for the last year at least, but the crime at hand took place back on December 5th, 2017. Joseph was initially arrested after he caused a crash after allegedly racing his Dodge Ram pickup truck against another. This is of course already a crime, but things turned so much worse when, as he allegedly raced, he also crashed into an uninvolved Toyota RAV4 that was carrying 2 occupants. Because of the crash, one passenger, Bill Swartz, who is 78 years old, passed away at the scene. His wife Jane, who is 58 years old and was with him, ended up passing away at the hospital on January 20th, 2018. As a result of all of the charges brought against him, Joseph was set to appear in court on September 17th, 2021 after a plea deal was reached. Despite this seemingly initial early cooperation, Joseph failed to appear in court, after which a no bond warrant for his arrest was issued. In our number 7 spot today, we have Alfredo Aedo. On June 9th, 2001, Alfredo was traveling southbound on State Road 93, which is on Interstate 75 in Charlotte County, and he was driving a 1984 white Chevrolet van. According to the statement the authorities put out while traveling in this vehicle, Alfredo had a blood alcohol content that was almost twice the legal limit. This of course led to him losing control of the vehicle, which ended up overturned. At the time of this crash, Alfredo wasn't alone in the vehicle and instead had a few passengers with him. As a result of the crash, 2 passengers in the vehicle died and 2 others sustained incapacitating injuries. Despite the clear severity of the crash as well as the horrifying injuries sustained, Alfredo is still wanted by the Florida Highway Patrol to answer for his involvement in this crash. In our number 6 spot today, we have Gasbar De Gasbar. On February 3rd, 2015, Gasbar was traveling in a 1996 yellow Thomas passenger bus when he pulled into the Marathon gas station in Indiantown. This small community was shocked that day for what transpired next. As Gasbar was backing the bus into the parking lot, there were 2 men sitting on a bench in front of the station. For reasons that no one is exactly sure of yet, the bus didn't stop and instead ended up striking both men, leaving one pinned between the station and the bus. Unfortunately, this led to the man passing away at the scene. Gasbar is said to have exited the bus after this horrific moment, but instead of sticking around, he apparently fled the scene. Others have identified him as being from the town, but no one is entirely sure where he went. There is an active arrest warrant out for him for a hit and run. In our number 5 spot today, we have Uriel Aguilar. The incident involving this man is said to have taken place on June 26, 2008, when Uriel ran into another man named Pedro Trevino at the Prime Supermarket in Mulberry, Florida. The men knew each other because they were co-workers, and there was a bit of a rocky history there because it is said that they had prior altercations with one another. Authorities reported that as Uriel and his brother were leaving the store, Pedro approached them and challenged Uriel to a fight. Uriel agreed to the fight, and when he went to meet Pedro in the parking lot for it, he also brought a weapon along with him. The two began fighting, and this is when Uriel used this weapon against Pedro, which ended up taking his life. After the fight, authorities claimed that Uriel fled the scene and was last seen in the area of Sparkman Road in Plant City before disappearing. Uriel still has an active warrant for this crime. In our number 4 spot today, we have Augustine Lighthouse. Augustine is another one of those people who caused an accident and decided to flee the scene, fleeing the consequences of their own actions. On October 22nd, 2006, he was driving a 2006 silver Ford truck westbound on State Road 82. As he traveled, he encountered the scene of a prior crash that unfortunately involved a fatality. As a result of this previous crash and the investigation that needed to take place, there was a Lee County deputy who had positioned her marked patrol car facing south in the westbound lane with emergency lights activated, and a detour to avoid this accident had been set up. Like I mentioned, Augustine ended up allegedly coming across it, so it's clear that he wasn't paying attention or just flat out ignored the detour. This ended in the front of his vehicle striking the deputy's vehicle, which sadly ended in fatality for the officer. As a result of this crash, Augustine was charged with DUI involving death, and of course a felony arrest warrant was put out, but despite this, he has yet to be located and brought to justice. It is currently believed that he likely fled the country, but authorities are still on the lookout should he ever try and return to the United States. In our number 3 spot today, we have Jose Arturo Palomino. On February 28, 2009, Jose was driving south of Sample Road in Pompano Beach on I-95 southbound in a 1996 silver Mitsubishi Eclipse. During this time driving, Jose ended up striking and killing a 23-year-old woman who was standing next to her vehicle on the shoulder of the roadway. This is of course tragic, and unfortunately accidents do happen, but it's what happened next that turns this into an even bigger thing. Jose is said to have chosen to leave the scene of the crime. He fled the scene of the accident and later abandoned the car that he was in a field. Turns out that the car he was driving wasn't even his, as he took to calling the owner, explaining that it had been in an accident and that he was sorry for taking it without permission. Despite the time it's been, however, authorities have been unable to locate Jose in order to arrest him on the warrant of leaving the scene of a crash involving a death. Authorities believe it is highly possible that he has since left the country. In our number 2 spot today, we have Victor Hernandez. Victor has been on the run since 2018 as he is wanted for taking someone's life. On March 11, 2018, it is said that Victor killed another man by the name of Luis L. Herrera Kindlin. This crime took place in Miami, and since the incident, Victor hasn't been found. In the poster about how Victor is wanted, authorities revealed that not only should he be treated as being armed and dangerous, but he also has one identifying feature about him, and that is the fact that he has a stoma in his throat. Right now, there is a reward for any tips that lead to his arrest. Right now, the Miami-Dade Florida Keys Crime Stoppers is offering a reward of up to $3,000, so if anyone has any information, they should definitely reach out to them to share, and all the tips will remain anonymous. In our number 1 spot today, we have Eric John Ritters. Eric is a wanted man and has been for quite a while now, since an incident that occurred on November 8th, 2002. Basically, that night Eric was traveling in a 1999 Oldsmobile northbound on Florida State Road 423, and he was going quite fast, definitely a lot faster than he should have been. As he sped, he allegedly lost control of the vehicle and ended up striking another car that was legally stopped. The front of Eric's car ended up hitting the driver's side door of the other vehicle, which caused significant damage, as well as very sadly led to fatal injuries for the driver, as well as the 2 other occupants of the vehicle that Eric hit. Eric was not only driving while intoxicated, but he was also going approximately 97 miles an hour at the time of the incident, despite it being a 45-mile-per-hour zone. I had to convert it to kilometers to get the full magnitude of the speed, so if you're like me, that's about 156 kilometers per hour in a 72 kilometer per hour zone. Despite these extensive injuries and the loss of life, Eric completely disappeared and still has 3 active warrants out for his arrest.
Coming in at number 10, we have I Can't Hold It. When you're living in Florida, there's going to be a lot of variables that your body won't be used to, especially if you're living like the legendary Florida man. You might be putting a bunch of chemicals and fast food products right down your throat that's going to leave you with a stomach that isn't very trustworthy, which might be what happened right here. Yeah, the local news station out in Florida caught this on camera. There was a guy who just drove up to someone's driveway, got out of their car, and then dropped a deuce right on the driveway. They didn't even try to hide it anywhere. They just took a poop right in the middle of the driveway, and you know it was a bad one. For one, this was clearly an emergency, and when you have to poop that badly, it's not coming out nicely. And on top top of that, he took his shirt off. When you have to get naked for a poop, that's because the act of pooping is making your body so hot that it probably feels like you're going to die. You're going to be sweating like crazy, and the poop is going to be a very noisy one. The worst part about the whole story is the news interviewed the guy whose driveway it was, and he had to hose the Florida man's poop after the incident. He had to hose it off his driveway. And let's be honest here, Florida man poop is probably some of the most toxic waste on the planet. If that stuff gets too close to you, it could probably turn you into a zombie or burn right through your skin. I'm pretty sure every time Florida man poops, it does more damage to the water supply than a BP oil spill. Next on the list, we have you messed with the wrong one. Every now and again, Florida men will encounter someone who's even crazier than him. Someone will match their bad behavior with a whipping that will send them running in flip-flops. Now, a Florida man at a McDonald's didn't like the service that he got. And I have said this before on this channel. If you're at a fast food establishment and you want good service, then you are insane. Bad service is part of the fast food experience, and it's what you deserve for eating there. It's the way things are. And if you demand good service at a fast food place, you are even worse than the horrible trash you're about to shove in your face. This guy apparently wanted a straw, and he didn't get it, so he thought it would be great to grab the McDonald's employee by the collar. Well, she was someone who wouldn't be treated like that, and she quickly lost it, as she should. For one, you should never get to touch anyone like that. I don't care who you think you are. Frankly, I think he should have gotten way worse of an I think the whole staff should have collectively smacked him around until he learned where he was. Next, we have the Otis Ryan Learning Hour. Now, I will let you know right off the bat that this one was caught on camera, but we can't show you the footage because it's literally too graphic for this channel. It's not violent, it's just what this man was saying in the video that is pretty gross and will for sure get this video demonetized. So, a Florida man went to a playground where there was a bunch of kids playing, and he wanted to teach them a lesson, not in the way you might be thinking when you think of that term. He actually wanted to educate these kids. Now, the way that he did it wasn't the best. What he did was climb to the top of the playground, so he was almost like a king yelling down at his subjects, and then he started to describe to the kids where babies come from. Parents moved in very quickly to take their kids out of there, and the police weren't far behind. Now, Ryan didn't physically hurt anyone, but he did say some things about procreation that are going to be hard to forget. Next on the list, we have butt out breaking in. One thing that is a hard and fast rule with the Florida man is that clothing is always optional. It doesn't matter if he is going to IHOP or a funeral, you never know how much or how little clothing this wild creature is going to be sporting, and this time for breaking in, he chose nothing. If any of you were confused as to what happened, let me break it down for you a little bit. A naked guy walked down to a pier where there were a bunch of boats all year round. He found a nice yacht and he decided that he was going to jump on board. Did he know what was on there? Absolutely not. Did he have a game plan going in? Oh, for sure no. Did he take anything? Well, he managed to rip down an American flag that was on the boat and start waving it around. Why did he do any of this? Well, probably because of freedom or something like that. Or maybe there was just so much tequila in this dude that he couldn't keep his clothes on, because sometimes tequila will do that to you. Next on the list, guys, we have gotta see the Gators. I don't know why, but Florida man loves Gators and Crocs. He can't get enough of them. It's like he's drawn to them, and they give him power. Maybe there's some sort of pheromone that Gators give off which makes the Florida man go crazy. This could be the connection between the two. But what we are about to show you is Florida man trying to get in touch with his favorite animal. That clip was from a guy breaking into a croc and gator sanctuary and then getting attacked by crocodiles. Obviously, you see him get out of the water after, so the thing didn't take his life or any of his limbs, but it did leave him pretty banged up. On top of that, he spent 4 hours walking around this place and splashing in the water with these monsters. He's lucky he made it out of there alive, but I just don't get why you would do something like that. If you wanted to go for a swim, I'm sure there are plenty of pools you could have broken into and saved yourself a lot of trouble. Next on the list, guys, we have a close shave. Sometimes the Florida man is a Florida woman. Really, Florida man knows no gender or boundaries. The Florida man is a way of life, and many of us will never understand it. It goes too deep. It's a form of expression that is so unique that some of the intelligent people in this world struggle to comprehend it, like what we have going on here. Next on the list, we have Storm Fighter. The thing with the Florida man is that he thinks he is smarter than most, and maybe he is. Maybe if we listen to the chaos babble that comes out of the Florida man's mouth, it would change the world for the better. Maybe the Florida man holds the key to saving the world, but we just think he's crazy, so we don't take his advice. Like, listen to this guy who is coming up with ways to fight against hurricanes.
Oh, it's the warm weather. Oh, it's the wind. Well, we have an Air Force. drive some Air Force planes around to get the winds going the opposite way.
So this guy was saying that the news was breaking down how hurricanes are caused by the ocean water being warm, and that the Navy should just go out and pour ice into the water and cool it down. He was also saying that the plane should fly in the opposite direction of the hurricane to make it stop, to sort of cancel it out. That is some of the funniest science I've ever heard, but who knows? Maybe this dude is actually right. Well, I think scientists would know that this wouldn't work and this man is a moron, but still, I think we should give this guy's plan a shot just in case. Next on the list, guys, we have Florida Man Can't Fly. Even though the Florida Man seems like he should have the ability to do anything with his power, he should be able to move mountains and create narcotics out of thin air. It turns out that there's a limit to his power. Let's check this out. A Florida man just fell out of the sky and onto a car out of nowhere. Are you serious? They never found out who this man was or how he fell out of the sky. He just smashes into a car and then walks off like nothing happened. I guess what the Florida man can't do in terms of flight, he makes up for in durability. That dude slams down on the roof so hard and isn't phased at all. I would like to see the x-ray of his tailbone though. I'm sure at the very least that thing was bruised up pretty bad. Next on the list, guys, we have Stuntman. I think after seeing this list, there is one thing you cannot deny. It's that the Florida man always knows how to put on a show. It doesn't matter where he is in the world, he will showcase something amazing that will either leave you flabbergasted or just with a horrible image etched into your mind. And this guy somehow managed to do both. This dude is risking his life and putting on a crazy show and doing it all with a thong on. This is truly one of the greatest Florida man moments ever. Could you imagine doing something like that? Being on the highway, on a bicycle, you got your butt cheeks flapping in the wind, and you're just hoping that you don't fall on the road and get rash everywhere. You just get your skin ripped off, and you're riding a bike in the most unusual way ever. I am truly impressed by this man. He is probably one of the most powerful people that we don't know about.
Kicking off our list at number 10, Room 206. This gives me Stephen King 1408 vibes, and I'm not sure that you're ready. Next time you visit Florida, make sure you read every customer review before you check into a hotel, because some of them might be full of ghosts. That might be a thing that you just might have to deal with. Room 206 at the Super on International Drive. Apparently, it's super haunted. Guests have reported the bed shaking in the middle of the night, probably terrible for your sleep, or freezing cold air even though the AC is turned off. And worst of all, guests have seen their bed look as though somebody was sleeping there moments before, even though it was perfectly made right before they checked in. Can ghosts squat? Is that legal? We've got a couple of spirit squatters in our room. Gotta move. Number 9, Disney on Ice. Many families love to visit Orlando at this time of year. The theme parks there are spectacular, especially Disney World. I went once when I was younger, but I don't recall ever seeing a real life Walt Disney. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that he died in 1966. Who knows? But never say never. One of Orlando's oldest tales is that Walt Disney had his body cryogenically frozen after his death. And right now, apparently it's being stored in a bunker underneath the theme park. I mean, that's a bit more creative than being cremated. I'll give him that. It's pretty Walt Disney of him just to freeze himself forever. A grad from the University of Central Florida Film School, Benjamin Lancaster, they actually made a film about this whole idea. It's called The Further Adventures of Walt's Frozen Head. That's a family classic, some would say. Number 8, Scarlet OHaras. You're gonna need 2 pieces of ID for this next one, all right? Perhaps the most haunted bar in Florida, located in St. Augustine, Scarlet OHaras is haunted by a past owner. Many believe that spirit likes to make itself known to guests. That's always fun. Try and go grab a pint and now you got a ghoul in front of you. That spirit is one of George Coley. Now George sadly bit the bullet one night when he was in his bathtub, so now we have a series of unexplainable events. Plates and glasses will sometimes move across the bar on their own, and the jukebox keeps playing Help Me Rhonda even when it's unplugged. So that's absolutely terrifying. If you want to check it out now, be warned, because it's a full-on tourist attraction at this point. But if you go, you can pose alongside the same bathtub that George Coley died in. Yeah, how lovely is that? Are we going to Disney World? Nah, even better, Scarlet OHaras. Yeah, you're gonna love it. Number 7, Stranahan House. You don't want to be stranded at the Stranahan House. It's gonna be bad news. Fort Lauderdale has a few haunted hidden gems, and the oldest house just happens to be the most haunted. What do you know? What odds are that? What odds are that? What are those odds? There we go. The house's OG owner was Frank Stranahan, and today, if you visit ye old stomping grounds, well, you might catch Frank in a photo or two. It's said that Frank still oversees the place, and he regularly shows up in guests' photos. So this ghost likes to photobomb. That's pretty amazing. I kind of like that. I suppose being trapped in the same house for all of eternity probably gets a little boring from time to time. Just to pop into a photo, throw some peace signs up, and then disappear back into the walls. Ivy Stranahan, Frank's late wife, she also has made an appearance or two. Nice. True love is haunting the same house forever. Guests have felt a cold hand on their shoulder, and her perfume still lingers in the hallway. Must have been some good, strong stuff. Nice. Now, it's not all fun and games. Augustus Stranahan, aka Frank's father, well, his ghost likes to throw books. It's really aggressive, so heads up for that, I guess, if you go. Cheers. Number 6, the Plaza Resort and Spa. Ah, yes, kick back and relax with ghosts. It's just what you want. You're never alone, I guess. That's a plus side. The Plaza Resort and Spa sounds like a relaxing getaway until you start looking up footage of the actual resort. One's gonna get your attention for sure. Back in August 2013, security cameras captured late night footage of this shape-shifting ghost, some sort of spirit, some scary blob. It's bad news, really, in any regard. What happened was the original building was destroyed by fire in 1909, and current staff will testify that they've seen the ghosts of victims caught in that blaze. How they know? I have no idea, but apparently they do know. It's a lot of details for one ghost appearance. One of the most common sightings includes a woman whose spirit is known to mess with the elevators and make items in the kitchen disappear. Okay, really? That last one's for sure an employee stealing food. He's like, oh yeah, I don't know. I think a ghost ate that cheesecake, boss. I don't know, spooky stuff, spooky. Number 5, the Blue Anchor Pub. Another bar, another haunted bill to pay. Here we go, debit or credit. Heading over to Delray Beach, the Blue Anchor Pub was built in 1840s in London, but the wooden interior was sent to New York City and then later on sent to Florida in 1996. So yeah, these spirits must be confused. They go from Jack the Ripper to some dude wearing a Yankees hat talking to a TV. Trapped in the wooden interior is the ghost of one Bertha Starkey, who was sadly killed by her husband back in the 1840s. Now, you know Bertha is lurking about when you hear rattling pots in the kitchen, and sometimes if you're really unlucky, you'll hear wailing in the middle of the night. Nice. Again, horrible sleep at this place. The Blue Anchor sounds like a really relaxing time, but every night at 10 o'clock, the current owners will blast a ship horn to scare away her spirit. I don't know, I feel like blaring a ship horn at 10 p.m. is more jarring than some pots and pans moving sometimes. You know what I mean? I'd rather hear the pots and pans than in the middle of the night. No way. Number 4, the Builtmore Hotel. Another hotel to avoid at all costs. Awesome, we love these ones. First of all, do you actually like staying at a hotel? Some people love it. Some people find it super relaxing. I can't help but think about what went on in the bed before me. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, why does this part of the bed feel a little bit caved in? What's going on here? Every time I'm in a hotel, I have the worst dreams and I can't sleep at all. The Builtmore Hotel in the city of Coral Gables is also one of the most haunted hotels in Florida. You've probably heard of this at some point. It all started in 1926 during initial construction. The Builtmore witnessed a foul killing on the 13th floor. The 13th floor of all floors, my God. The Builtmore was also turned into a military hotel during World War II before ultimately being closed and then abandoned later in 1968. Now, the city renovated the hotel later on in the 80s, but it didn't take long for ghost stories to start to spread. It's horrible, horrible past, I mean, more than fair. Now, of course, the most activity is on the 13th floor, so if you do check this one out, really double down, go to the haunted floor, you know, don't just look outside and then book. Go in, stay a night. I can't believe some buildings don't have a 13th floor. Can you imagine that? Well, they do, but everyone pretends that they don't. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, it's 12. I don't know. We'll see. Are you a 13th floor believer? Comment down below. Me personally, I don't think so. Because it's the 14th or the 12th. Or the 13th, I don't know anymore. No one knows anymore. It goes 11, 12, 14. You're like, really? What's the 14s? We know what's going on here, come on. Number 3, Tampa Theater. If you're a fellow theater kid, you're also gonna love this one. Here we go. Tampa Theater opened up in 1926. The theater is now said, of course, to be haunted by a woman that was struck and killed by a carriage on the property. Imagine being hit by a carriage. It's so slow. This was actually before the theater was built, so her spirit has been there for a while. If you go to Tampa Theater today, you might catch a glimpse of that woman in a white gown walking across the mezzanine hallway. This time without carriages whipping through, hopefully, sans carriage. Imagine telling somebody in in front of you to sit down during a show, then they just disappear. You're like, I think that was a ghost. I think that was probably a ghost. It says in the playbill, ghost, so maybe that was her. Tampa Theater, of course, has leaned into these claims. Now they offer Ghosts of Tampa Theater Tour, where guests can learn about its haunted history. I'd love to do this tour. I don't know. Maybe I'll go to Florida. Who knows? I won't. I'm probably not going to.